Hi, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm really excited to talk with you. As you can see, Fergus is obviously excited as well in the background. My dog. I'm excited to talk to you today about the results that we're getting from the program, from Revolution from Within. And one of our recent graduates, Kate Moreland, is here to just share with us her experience and what she got from it and how things have changed. So first of all, welcome, Kate. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Do you want to share just a little bit about yourself and where you are in the world and give us a little intro?
Sure. So I am kind of in my mid-career, I would say. I'm married with 3 kids, 2 off to college. And so kind of in a pivotal time, I think, in my own life. I work in economic development and took on a leadership role this spring right as the pandemic hit. So I've had a really crazy last 4 months professionally, and of course then that translates to personally too.
Well, it's great to have you here. Could you just share with us real quickly, what were the results that you got from the program? Because you just completed the 10 weeks. And can you share with everybody what were your if there were big takeaways, or what's the impact been?
I think for me, I just have a much better understanding of myself and why certain patterns exist for me, kind of the why. We all know we have patterns, but really understanding the why for me was important. And by identifying patterns that I have and learning to let go of some of the beliefs that don't serve me are making me, I think, better in all aspects of my life. So I feel like I've really discovered a new way of living.
That's amazing. Can you tell us a little bit more about, you have this new way of, you have an understanding of the why and the structures that were put in place. Now that you're having a different relationship with them, how has that impacted things? What is it? Are you different at work? Are you different at home?
Really, I would say I'm probably different everywhere. I'm just much more conscious of things I wasn't conscious of before. And I'm a much better listener, both to myself and to others. I think that just understanding where all of that anxiety and control and those things come from has really helped me be kinder to myself, not be so hard on myself, which means you just go through life a little more joyful and forgiving of yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Share with us what was happening for you when we met.
Well, like I said, I had this new job and I was feeling pretty insecure. It was a big job that I took on at a time that was so much uncertainty. And we've all been feeling that, I think, with COVID too, just pure uncertainty in every area of your life. And so I had a little bit of imposter syndrome happening and just felt kind of rudderless a little bit, like, okay, I applied for a job, but then I got a different job, right? Because the world fell apart. And so part of it came from just that professional piece. And then just, I knew that I still had some personal things to work through. And so I just felt like I didn't know what I needed. I knew I needed something. Kind of found you by, there's no accidents, but I found you online, and it was exactly what I didn't know I needed. It certainly came at a time when I needed some grounding, and I needed to do some inner work at a time when felt like the rest of the world was falling apart.
So because the rest of the world was falling apart and you knew that you had some stuff to do, what was your day-to-day like? What was the emotional state you were in?
High anxiety. Just in the role I was in, the economy was shutting down. We're tasked with making the economy grow. So everything we knew to be true was suddenly not the way forward anymore. And so I felt like there was a lot of fear surrounding me and anxiety, in my inner circle and my outer circle. And I just felt like I couldn't escape it. Like it was just everywhere. So just super high anxiety.
And then on top of it, the kids and everything that they're going through, and are we going back to college or not? Are we graduating or not? All those pieces were layered in there. You also, my dear, I think have become a recovering perfectionist. Yes. Could we say
that? Yes, for sure. And yeah, now I really understand kind of where that comes from. And once you kind of name it and you understand it, it's a lot easier to deal with.
Yeah, I think a big part of it also in the work is that you did such a great job. You were all 100% in, committed, looking at the stuff, picking up big rocks, moving things. You were definitely ready for change and you were committed all the way through. And so I just want to applaud you for that, because it really does it seems impossible that in 10 weeks you can be almost an entirely different human being or different version of yourself. But would you say that, or do you feel pretty different?
I do. And it was happening. I felt like it was gradually happening, but in the end, it was like kind of these last few pieces of the puzzle came in. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the whole picture. That's like all of it. And now it all makes sense. And my life makes more sense. How I am in the world makes more sense.
That's awesome. So would you say then, tell us a little bit more about where you are right now with your anxiety levels and stress and uncertainty and control?
I would say that I certainly still have, and I think we all do just because of the nature of the world, but I'm much better at recognizing it and staying on top of it and recognizing what I need in the moment, what I need that day, and giving myself permission to just do what I need to do, building in those self-care things throughout my day, recognizing what emotion is coming up for me and maybe why it's coming up for me also helps kind of quell that. So all of those just self-understanding and recognition things, it means I'm dealing with my anxiety better. It doesn't mean it's gone. It just means that I'm much more on top of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you stepped into a position that is a pretty big deal. And so you're dealing with a lot of people, not only it's your staff, but throughout your community, that I think would cause anyone to have a little doubt or second guess or go, can I really do it? And as you shifted through navigating through this, talk a little bit more about this permission thing that you're giving.
So I guess I can acknowledge how I'm feeling now and give myself permission to not be perfect, and that we may need to try things in our organization. They may or may not work. We need to be able to be agile and pivot. And so just like in my personal life, at work, it's the same thing, right? There are times when I need to step away. I need to see things from a different vantage point and come back at something, 24 hours later, and I look at it differently. So just being kinder with myself about what I'm really able to do at this point. And frankly, being comfortable with it being messy, because it is right now. The world is messy. There's no easy answers. And so I'm just being gentler with myself about that and letting that be okay.
So now that you're able to be more gentle, you're letting it be okay, it can be messy. What's that provide for you? Or what's the outcome from that?
Just kind of relief. I think that I don't have to have everything all figured out all the time. And there's just a lot of peace that comes with that. And I think also a lot more creativity, frankly. I feel more creative in the way I'm looking at my work and every day.
I think that's great. And not only that, I have noticed there's a significant shift in your confidence level, because I think you talked a lot about, I don't have to have it all figured out. It doesn't have to be perfect. And when we take that weight that we've been like put on ourselves, like I have to do it, I have to figure it out. Now I'm the president, or all this self-imposed stuff. And we go, oh, right. Except I'm the leader. So as the leader, I get to set the tone and hold the container for what it is we're creating together. So let me gather all the information that I can from the best resources that I have. And then we can, I ultimately need to make the decision. But coming at it from that angle, what did that provide for you?
Understanding my role as a leader, coming into a leadership role at the time of just complete uncertainty, and it felt like, everything was kind of crumbling around us. Part of my role is to help members of my team feel heard and like you said, holding space for them to be able to deal with the things we're dealing with in a way that's not judgmental, that's supportive. And so I think I've, my vision of what leading this organization was going to look like, very quickly, it demanded something different from me. And so this has helped me greatly in the ability to do that, to lead in that way.
Very good. Share with us what, up until this point, because I would imagine this was not the first time you dealt with anxiety or imposter syndrome or any of those things, that the perfectionism piece. What other things have you tried before this to help navigate these waters?
Well, I've done therapy in the past and medication briefly. I like to talk, so I've certainly been a talker about it. I've been open with friends and family about it, but this was the first time I've kind of come at it at a totally different angle, and I really felt that. How is it that I'm just discovering this about myself? I'm 48 years old, so it was it's a totally different way for me to look at myself and patterns and behaviors. Beyond just trying to fix the anxiety, I had to get to where it started.
Yeah, and sort of the underlying pieces, right? And going back and looking. And so would you say, how is this different than the things you've done in the past?
It's much more forward looking. So while you do address like your past and kind of look at your patterns, I feel like it's much more tied to how you're presently living and how you want to live.
Mm-hmm.
So just putting that out there and knowing what I wanted from this felt like a very positive approach to it versus just kind of swimming in what wasn't working.
And would you say, were you really clear about what you wanted from the program or the outcomes?
No, I really wasn't sure what I wanted. I knew I needed something, and I knew I needed a North Star, because like I said, I felt a little bit rudderless at the time. Like, okay, I don't know where I'm supposed to be taking this organization or my life right now. So I think for me, part of it was just the timing of all of it. But could I have benefited from this 20 years ago? Absolutely. And frankly, I have a 20-year-old that I have shared these things because I'm like, I wish I had known the vision more fully developed as I went along. But I knew I needed my life to look different.
Good. Speaking of, you have young kids, you've got young adults, and you're married. How have things changed at home?
I would say kind of with them too, I'm just better at kind of holding space for them. They're also going through very difficult times with all of this and uncertainty and school, not knowing what that's going to look like. So I feel like it's prepared me to be a better mom and help them navigate through that, because I obviously am kind of modeling that for them. And so I think that that's helped them feel a little more secure in, we're just taking things one day at a time, and here's what we know, and here's what remains to be seen. So there's been some surrender in it for myself that I think has translated to help them too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And with Joe?
Yeah. Both of us kind of on our own trajectory of work, and just a better understanding of where each other are coming from too. I think it's been really powerful in a relationship to kind of feel like you're living differently and more wholly. I mean, there's lots of times where he's like, tell me about that. What is that? So it's kind of translated for him personally, but then us collectively too. And it helped him understand me better, frankly. So
yeah, I think in the process of you understanding you better, and then when you can actually share that with especially people who are closest in our lives, this kind of work is actually really helpful, so we can learn to be curious, not only with ourselves, but also with the other people in our lives. But why do you do it that way? And what is it that provides for you? So it sounds like things have reset a little bit kind of on all fronts for you.
yes, they have. For sure.
Okay. Tell us, describe for me, what's one of the first things or a thing that I asked you to do that you thought, okay, this is crazy. I don't know what is going on.
The somatic release for me, I was like, what is she talking about? Just when emotion comes up and you're feeling overwhelmed, or you're in a conflict, or there's something that you feel yourself, your anxiety rising or your emotions rising, that you need to get it out and release it till you either cry or you laugh. And your body literally can kind of shift then. And once you start doing that on a more regular basis, things don't build up to the point where they come out sideways, which is often what I would see before. So, and giving myself permission to just take a minute, and, sometimes it's going for a walk or running or, exercise too. I think all of those things, anytime you're releasing like that, you inevitably feel better. But I didn't understand kind of the science behind it or why that worked.
Well, good. Has it changed your relationship with your emotions?
Yeah, it definitely has, and allows you to kind of own your feelings and move through it, like so that you can get beyond it versus letting it pile up. So
Yeah. It's really interesting. I think when we act from an emotional place, it usually tends to be much younger versions of ourselves who frankly just don't have the tools. They're not sure how to navigate. And so learning how to this process of discharging and releasing so that the fully formed version of you, or the generative form of you, can actually show up to navigate through some difficult things is really the purpose of that experience. And from my perspective, our power is entirely in our emotional state and our sense of our intuition and our sense of knowing. And, even anger and rage, it's a fire that gets set below underneath us for change. And what it represents is my boundaries have been crossed. Something here is not okay. And now using that as a weapon because we're afraid of it or we don't know what to do or what are they going to say, all that it leaks out or we just blow up at people, not usually super helpful, but being able to actually have a relationship with it can navigate things in a really different way. So it's good to hear that that's moved for you.
yes, yeah, it really has.
Well, if you think about you 10 weeks ago, 12 weeks ago, and the you now, is there anything else that you would say that you'd want to make sure people knew or that experience that you had or ways you see yourself, experience yourself in a different way?
I guess I kind of already said this, but really just, I can't believe how much better I understand myself and my relationships with people in my life and why certain things continue to be struggles. Suddenly I look at them in a whole different way and they don't seem as frustrating. I've also set up new boundaries in my life that I've needed for a long time, but didn't recognize why I needed them. So I think for me, the biggest thing is the why. Like the why to all of this became very clear. And it really, like I said, it's kind of been building blocks over the weeks. But by the last couple weeks, it was like the final pieces of the puzzle like got put into place. And I was like, wow, this makes so much more sense. And it makes you feel, I think you said it at one point, like my goal is to be whole, not perfect. And so now I feel like I'm on my way to being more whole.
The way you describe it seems like it's a sort of an intellectual concept of like, oh, it makes more sense now. I've also noticed in you that there's an embodied difference, right? Because, there's homework each week. And so there's this awareness tools and all the pieces that kind of the building blocks, as you were mentioning. But describe for us now that you have this understanding of the why. What does that give you?
I have a sense of peace about things that I didn't have before. And I'm definitely calmer than I was. And I can make decisions more easily than I could before. And I don't feel like I kind of get stuck in the loop of like, well, is this, there's a million different ways to look at this. I'm able to just discern things and kind of trust myself more in making decisions. So I feel more at peace with myself and kind of where I'm going.
That's amazing. I think one of my biggest objectives is to help any one of my clients, but women especially, just find more freedom, more like the path to liberation in terms of the way we put ourselves. There's so much pressure, self-imposed pressure, and so many contradictory and conflicting rules about how we're supposed to behave and who we're supposed to be and who we're supposed to please and all these. So my intention for this is just to pull back some of that power that we've given away to people so that we can operate from self first. And, this concept of just really being sovereign in your decision making and in your relationship to self and in your knowing of who you are and what you want. And so that is the foundation from which then you connect with other people and then you contribute and then you influence. And so could you talk a little bit about that, if that shift has happened for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for a long time, lots of people look for outside fixes to make your life better. Like if I just drink that supplement or do this over, that's the answer. But the answers really are inside of yourself. And So just taking the time to unwind the patterns, understand them, then I feel like that's what helps leverage your inner strength and feel more fulfilled. And so making time for that is what women don't do, right? We're so busy taking care of everyone else and making sure their needs are being met that I literally had to schedule in the time to make, and you watched me, sometimes I got interrupted, but really trying to make the time for that is well worth it.
Well, thank you so much for all of your hard work and your commitment to this again. One last thing before I let you go. How is being in a group? Often people think, well, I don't know about groups, or I'm not sure about the interactions. And, there are women from all over the country. And so it's really, the dynamics shift each week. So can you talk a little bit about that, what you got from it and the benefits or what you thought?
Yeah. And I was kind of in the beginning about that. I was like, well, wait a second. But I felt like I had a balance of the individual time, and then the group time was definitely kind of unifying. And I learned as much from listening to other women talk, and there's certainly commonalities but also unique challenges, and you kind of become each other's champions quietly in the background of watching their success week to week too. So yeah, so it was powerful. And I always think there's power in women just being together. So it was a whole nother layer that I didn't expect, but it found very beneficial.
Well, thank you again so much. Thanks for sharing today and for making the time to do this. And I think, unless there's anything else you want to share.
No, just thank you. It was seriously life-changing. And I don't know what made you pop up on my screen one day, but it was definitely one of the best things I've invested in.
Oh, well, thank you. It's just been genuinely an honor and just such a privilege to watch you and to go through this process with you. Well, dear, I will talk with you very soon. And thank you again. And thank you all for joining us. And we'll see you soon. Bye, Kate.